and he's incredibly generous with his time, and we're really glad that we could have him. I'm going to start off with a bit about Eyal's biography, and then we're going to get into a series of different questions and topics, including also a lot about Eyal's personal journey and service itself. So Eyal Hulata served for more than 20 years in different Israeli national security roles, including in the Mossad as the head of the technology division and also other strategic planning and policy functions. For his achievement, Eyal was awarded the prestigious Israel Defense Award, the country's highest awards for contributions to national security. From July 2021 to January 2023, Eyal served as Israel's National Security Advisor and the head of Israel's National Security Council, where he advised both Prime Minister Naftali Bennett and Prime Minister Yair Lapid. During his time, Eyal coordinated various important efforts, the Maritime Border Agreement with Lebanon, the Strategic Consultation Group with his American counterpart, Jake Sullivan. Since leaving office, Eyal has entered in different tech ventures. He's been the chief product officer of the Israeli fintech company Pagaya, and he's also a senior international fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He's a graduate of Israel's elite technology leadership program, Talpiot, and also holds a PhD in physics from Tel Aviv University and other degrees from Harvard. And he's also the holder of multiple patents, some I understand on positioning cells. I mean, I don't have any patents, and I think that's an impressive achievement. And so I'm sure we'll have a lot of interesting things to talk about tonight. But before we start, please give a warm welcome to our wonderful guest.
So first, thank you all for coming. Dan asked me to come, and I'm always happy to speak to audiences when I'm visiting in the U.S. I never know who will come and why, so it's always good to meet enthusiastic and people who are committed and interested in what's happening. So thank you, Dan, for organizing this. Thank you, Rabbi Shmutkin. Thank you, Ricky.
Yeah.
For being in the first row. And yeah, let's hit the road.
Yeah, you said you don't know who's here, but I'm the only Columbia grad, I think. So I think that's like good news that we won't have any like tent people.
No, it's fine. I spent the day in Columbia. It's
okay. So I want to start off first with tell us about like your upbringing. Like, where were you from in Israel, and what was your upbringing like? You know, what were the things like you were involved in? I understand you were in like Scout movement. Tell us what that was like for you.
So I grew up in Rishon LeZion. It's a town southeast of Tel Aviv. My father was a professor, and my mother is a teacher, and all of us grew up in this environment. My sisters and brother all in public service in different domains. I turned to science. I went to the Talpiot program, as Dan mentioned, studied physics, and things kind of rolled from there. You know, I didn't plan to be in defense sector for so long, but I kind of felt that as long as I had the opportunity to do something meaningful, then I feel that I'm growing and also able to use my potential to things that made me feel the sense of mission that is, I think, all Israelis in those ages feel. You know, it's part of having a compulsory service. If you're already there, then you might as well do something meaningful with the time. So I felt that very much. Serving in Mossad is both an adventure and I think a very important mission. And I was there for 23 years or so. So for me to be called back to service as National Security Advisor was a no-brainer. You know, it's kind of roles I felt was an opportunity to do something very, very meaningful. I was hoping to do it longer than a year and a half, but you know, it's that government didn't survive, unfortunately, very well. And since then, I've been doing many things. My plan, my hope, is to go back to public service. In my case, there needs to be a government that would again hire someone like me. I wasn't good enough for this government for many reasons, I guess. But in any case, that's my hope.
Well, guess we'll see what happens in the
We'll see what
coming
happens.
months. When was the first time you heard of the word Mossad, and how did you join? The reason I asked that is, for a long time, the Mossad was actually not known to the Israeli public. Like we think today, we're really used today to knowing who the director is, but for a long time, even the director wasn't known. How did you first hear about it and then decide this is what you wanted to do?
So, look, in our generation, it's not. I was born in 1976, right? So I'm not that of a dinosaur.
You're like Cretaceous period.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll try to take that as a compliment.
You should.
So, it was, we knew that this, what the organizations are, and I think that definitely growing up in this period there was always security issues and concerns in Israel throughout. So when I joined Talpiot, one of the things we do is we go all around the defense sector and we visit units, so we get to know the different places, again, from a technological perspective. And there was something about this being a small unit that does things that cannot be either acquired or done elsewhere that intrigued me. And there, of course, tested capabilities, and they selected me out of the group. Of course, I was honored to do that. So for me, it was an opportunity to start something fresh. I had no idea what I was getting into, right? From the outside, everything looks wonderful, right? Like a movie. The tech division in Mossad would be like, for those of you who watch James Bond movies, so this will be like Q. Of course, from the outside, you think that everyone is doing great James Bond things all the time, right? And laboratories and doing things very quickly. So part of it is true.
Okay.
Sometimes what we do exceeds imagination, but most of the time it's just hard. Those of you who do tech, or I think in any profession, the reality is always harder than it is on screen or in books, just because of the pace of things and all that. But I had a wonderful journey, very, very diverse. I was exposed to many different kind of technologies. I started managing projects very early in my career, so I got up the ranks very well. So when I got the tech division to run it, and it's by that time it was pretty big, like several hundreds of very talented engineers, scientists, very talented. I'll call them kids, even though they were all grown up, but very talented young women and men that just committed to technology and to service. It was just amazing. Like, I think those years that I managed that unit were probably the most exciting and enjoyable time of
what years were those?
I did. So I joined Mossad in '97.
Yeah.
I ended my time there in end of 2020. So yeah, the technology unit was from 13 to 18.
Really busy time with like the Iran file, of course. I'm sure like you saw like a lot of the evolution for that.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of people from, especially the Mossad, like including former director Yossi Cohen, coming out and now speaking about their experiences. I'm wondering if you could share with us some of the most challenging or proudest projects that you were a part of, or that you can neither confirm nor deny that you were a part of.
Yeah. So you were talking that back in the days, people didn't know a lot about what the organization does. Today, there is this habit that I have to say I don't like too much, but it just happens that when things succeed, they're out in the paper. In the days I started working in Mossad, everybody only knew about failures, right? So when Mossad couldn't take out Marshall properly, everybody knew about it, right? It erupted.
Khalid Mashal, the Hamas leader.
Yes, in '97.
Yeah.
Right? And everything that happened with
in the first Netanyahu prime ministership.
Yes.
Yeah.
and everything kind of erupted, right? What passports Mossad operatives use and how they got in, how they go out. In recent years, also some good stuff come out. Again, I don't necessarily like it. I think sometimes it makes our adversaries or enemies know too much about what we know. I mean, when we fail, then there's nothing to do about it. But when we succeed, they better not know exactly how we did it, so that we can do it again. But I mean, once it's out, it's out. So I think many of the things that involve Mossad and technology over the last few years, one way or another, either me or people I worked with, were involved in. So take your pick. What was exciting? I think I've done Iran things for the last 25 years, and I think most of those years we were involved in finding out things they didn't want us to know, and slowing them down in various ways, causing problems that they didn't expect, and mainly keeping them busy on the defense. This was a very important part of it, so they won't break out. When I started doing this work,
break out nuclear-wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I started doing this work, like 2001 or two, there was this thinking in Mossad that there's nothing that we can do about it, because in a matter of years they're going to have a nuclear bomb.
That was the thing at the time. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I think that's around the time when like Mayor Dagan, who I know you mentioned,
So
someone you
Mayor
revere.
Dagan stepped in 2001 or two, and he was a true warrior.
Yeah.
One of my personal heroes, and that was the word in the system, that there was nothing we can do about it. Iran will get nuclear, and we're not prepared, and there's no military option. So we'll just we'll see what happens. But he had the vision and also the leadership to say, no, we give up only when we're dead, and until that, we're going to fight it, because this is a life mission, and our enemies should never have weapon of mass destruction, because the Jewish people history, and I'm just talking about 80 years history, I'm talking about 100 years of history. We've been through so many attempts to take us down as a people, and this is not happening in our shift. And I think that was very powerful for so many of us during that time.
By the way, your father is from Iran. Did that personally connect with you?
No, my mother's family is from Iran. My father family is Holocaust survivors from the Netherlands. So when he kind of started directing this, the thinking was, we have to do whatever we can to slow them down, and to cause enough confusion within their ranks and frustration within their ranks, so that at the very minimum they will know that if they try to dash for a bomb, we'll find out, and we're going to do something about it. And I think that what we've seen over this period of time is that first, we were able to slow them down, I think, quite significantly, and also we're able to use that time to build other solutions. One of them was the American attempt to negotiate an agreement back in 2013 and 15. I had a lot of hopes that the Americans will negotiate well, because the initial conditions were good. Unfortunately, I thought that the outcome of that negotiated agreement was not very good, but we can talk about it if you want. But in any case, it was clear that this will not hold, and that either there's a possibility to get a better agreement, still waiting for that, and if that doesn't work, and Iran gets too close to acquiring a bomb, Israel will need to attack them militarily. And for years, we also built this capability. I think the attack in June of last year, the 12-day war that focused on the Iranian nuclear program, did significant damage to their program. We didn't obliterate their entire program. I think that's not the good word to use there. But what we should know is that for a year since then, because we're about a year since that time, Iran has completely halted their nuclear program. There's been zero enrichment in Iran for the last year. It's true that they still have a stockpile of enriched uranium hidden in various places, and until we put our hands on it one way or another, there is still a high risk that they can dash to a bomb, but there's not a single centrifuge enriching uranium in Iran for a year.
Yeah.
And this hasn't been the case in 20 years. So this is pretty significant, our ability to do that, of course, with the heavy assistance of the Americans, Midnight Hammer at the time, and so forth. So these are the kind of things, when I started working on this, it was always clear that we need to create all of the tools in our toolbox, because we'll need to respond in various ways if we intend to be committed that Iran will not have a nuclear program or a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
And at least so far, this worked. You mentioned Dagan. When we started this, Dagan said we'll need to keep them without the capability for 40 years, because after 40 years we change generations and maybe they'll forget what they wanted. I don't think that they'll forget, but in any case, according to my count, we're halfway.
That's really interesting. You know, one of the questions I actually had was what are some of the big changes you've noticed over the years? So it's really interesting to hear you talk about how we've basically gone from almost like no hope, and that was an interesting period for the Mossad, change in leadership, Ariel Sharon and Meir Dagan's like organizational change, to now kind of being halfway through this sort of 40-year mission. Before we get into some of the regional stuff, I just want to talk a little bit more about you and Judaism in the Mossad. The Mossad has a line on its seal from the book of Proverbs, which in English translates to, "For want of strategy, an army fails, but victory comes with much planning." I'm wondering, what does this line mean to you? And how did Judaism or Jewish values influence your service, your outlook on national security across different roles?
Yeah. So, first, by way of identity, I think, especially after talking to many groups of Jewish people in the U.S. and elsewhere, for us, most Israelis, Jews living in Israel, we can sometimes take our Jewish identity for granted. In fact, for many of us, just living in Israel is enough. It's the Holy Land, so we keep the mitzvahs just by being there. Of course, there are many, I think it's true. And of course, there are many tensions between different factions in the Israeli society. Everything is very high tensions, especially now, given the political setting. I mentioned this because I think it matters a lot for us to understand that we may have sometimes very strong, even aggressive disagreements between us, but keeping us united as a people is very, very important. And I think for me, when you ask me what it means for me to be Jewish, then a lot of it has to do with Jewish tradition and keeping a Jewish family life and the holidays and Shabbat dinners and the rituals and the language and everything that associates with it. I don't have to be, in my mind, a active worshiping believer to feel the importance of being part of this tribe of thousands of years with a future of hopefully thousands of years. And to do that, what's have been most important for the Jewish people and will continue to be most important for the Jewish people is this sense of unity. That we understand that we are unique, we are different. Unfortunately, there will always be people who will find that problematic for various reasons. But as long as we're able to keep ourselves intact, then we'll do fine. I say that because we're now in times where this is not trivial anymore. This is not trivial in Israel. Unfortunately, it's not trivial in the diaspora. You know what you are going through from your surroundings. and I think you also know what you're going through as a people. The kind of tensions that project things that happen in Israel, project on your way of life, things that happen here, project on what's happening in Israel. Just today, unfortunately, a group of in this case, Haredi people thought that they had the right to attack the deputy senior judge in our Supreme Court because he was involved in ruling of conscription of Haredi, and this erupts in such magnitudes that make me feel that we have to find a different way to conduct this internal dialogue of us as a Jewish people. The way this is handled now has become violent by so many factions for so many perspectives, and this sense of us becoming separate, where each group or faction or sometimes sect feel that they are ultimately right, and which makes them entitled to fight for it within us as a family. This makes me very, very worried. Cognizant of our history, I know that this is exactly the kind of things that crack us from within and allow our enemies to use that. I was hoping that after October 7 we'd learn a lesson, and it seems like we haven't learned enough of this lesson of importance of unity. And I say this in a very neutral way because even me could easily say that I know what the answer is, right? Because if only people would do what I think they need to do, then everything will be okay. But I'm not falling to that trap.
It's very un-Jewish-like of you.
Well,
yeah.
We all need to calm down, to ease some of our convictions of ultimate belief that we are right, to be more tolerant and more accepting. When people from here that come to Israel and are not welcome because of whatever their denomination is, it makes me angry. When people feel that they no longer can be a part of the Jewish total family because of those things, it makes me angry. When people feel that they do not have the needs to keep close to their Judaism because of various things, it makes me sad. Because there are not so many of us anyway. And in fact, our numbers are on the decline for the first time in decades. And this is, I think that's a huge problem. So when you ask me what being Jewish means to me, it's this sense of responsibility. I think that we in Israel have a responsibility. If we're the homeland of the Jewish people and we have the power to defend ourselves, then we need to use that as a responsibility of the entire Jewish people in Israel and abroad, and of all denominations and of all types of belief, because this is the family that is all. So I didn't speak about what that means in Mossad, but I hope I was clear enough in this very, I think, empathic, even sympathetic message to what you're all going through.
Really appreciate that. Now turning a little bit more to kind of the region and the war. It's been about 93 or so days since the war started. About 40 odd of those days were actual fighting, and it's been about 50 odd days of a kind of ceasefire with a blockade and a lot of negotiations. But
I don't know.
I'm
counting 1,000 days since October 27. I don't know.
Okay.
October 7th of 23. It's more than 1,000 days. I don't know. It's this 90, 80. I mean, it's all.
The point being that a lot of people now are kind of like pointing out that since Epic Fury or Roaring Lion from the Israeli side, there's now been a lot more negotiations happening, especially from the administration's effort. How does Israel view the administration's efforts to potentially get a deal, and what does a good deal look like from Israel's perspective?
Yeah. So first, to be honest, this is to be expected. President Trump joined the 12-day war only at the end of it. It started as an Israeli war, and Midnight Hammer was kind of the closing element of it. That was a surprise to me that
President Trump
ordered this engagement. That was a very encouraging.
Why was that surprising?
Why was that surprising? Because consecutive presidents refrained from using military force in Iran. President Trump himself, in the first term, also refrained from using military force in Iran. When he took out Qasem Soleimani, he was in Iraq. And there was a reason for that, because he had no intention in attacking Iran and pulling them into war. I engaged with the Biden administration in 21, 22. It was clear that the United States is completely averse of engaging in conflict with Iran, and even Trump in the second term was very averse. I think only when it was clear that the IDF, the Air Force, was able to dominate the skies of Tehran and diminishing the risk to American pilots very significantly, that even Pentagon had to admit that it was safe enough for the strategic bombers to come and drop those multi-ordnance penetrators. That was the cue to let that happen. That was, I think, a very important chain of events. After which Israel was called a model ally in the Strategic Defense Review. I mean, this was a relatively good development. What's happening now in Epic Fury, this is very different. Because even if there was, and of course there were engagement between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump on this was ultimately the president's decision to go into war with Iran. If the president hadn't made a decision to go into war with Iran, then Israel wouldn't be able to do what we did. Israel couldn't decapitate the supreme leader in Iran if it wasn't not only coordinated with the Americans, but approved by the Americans. The fact that we did it is because you have issues with Congress and approvals and Title 20 and 10 and 50 and whatever in it. Okay, so we're always there to execute, because just give us a chance and we'll do it. But we need to make no mistake. And I say this because, of course, it's already out there, and I think it's going to be even uglier coming to the midterm, that Israel dragged the United States into a war in Iran. I know enough to tell you we did not drag the United States into war in Iran. We did shape it, I think, to be a more effective and broader attack than what might have happened otherwise. But, that's many details in this. The reason I say that is because we're definitely now in a point where things are very different. Mm-hmm. Things did not turn out the way President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted, to say the least. We decapitated the leadership. We took out many of their capabilities. Iran did not collapse. Not only did Iran not collapse, Iran, and I think in that they're maybe the only country in the world that can endure all of what they've been hit with, and at the end they don't only survive, they think they can come out of it and do this and say, no, actually we're winning. Seriously, I don't know any other country in the world that would be in this position. I mean, think of Israel. Let's go 50 years back to Yom Kippur War. By all accounts, Israel had the military upper hand at the end of the war, and we're still in trauma that this was a total defeat, because this is the way we as Israel deal with those things, right? The American establishment has definitely had the upper hand in Iran throughout this time, but the word on the street and on the media is that even here, approving this narrative that Iran is actually having the upper hand and attacking the president. And again, I'm not trying to make this into a political statement. This is something I think very profound about what's happened to us as liberal societies. We tend to be very self-critical. It's good, because otherwise we don't improve, but sometimes it's a bit over the top. In this case, Iran is in a position where they can say we're actually winning just because we survived. This is very bizarre, but this is the case.
Yep.
So I'm not surprised that the president is engaging in negotiation. It was a given. I have to say, to his credit so far, and I might be proven wrong tomorrow, but at least so far, he's holding the principles pretty firmly. He's not giving away to a whitewash agreement. Again, so far. I hope I'm not hope not you're not in a position tomorrow to say this.
I hope you're not perturbed
This
as the
Eyal
president
guy
said.
didn't know anything, and look what he did. I hope that doesn't happen. But at least so far, he is holding the line, insisting
Yeah.
that an arrangement has to deal also with the nuclear elements, not just opening the Strait of Hormuz and give the Iranians everything that they are looking for. I am worried though, because the external constraint that the president are in, the economic pressure that is coming within, the political pressure that is coming from within. I don't know how the primaries ended yesterday and all of them, and what does that project to the midterm elections. But Washington is boiling.
Right.
So we need to hold strong and hopefully to help this process go in the right way. I don't like all of those leaks about the conversations between the president and Netanyahu. I think we need to be more careful as Israel to be cognizant of the dilemmas and issues that the president have. I definitely don't like that everything is out there. I was National Security Advisor with the Biden team. As you can imagine, we did not agree on everything. We disagreed on a lot. But you haven't heard about most of it because we made it very clear, and this was a directive given by Prime Minister Bennett and then Prime Minister Lapid with Biden, that we take care of our disagreements behind closed doors. And it was actually very fruitful and productive because we were able to iron out a lot of disagreements productively without giving all of this quick wins to all the haters that can say, you can see Israel is divergent from the US and the US is no longer supportive of Israel. Too easy. So I don't like this rift at the moment. I hope we're over it soon. I hope we don't feeding the haters with too much propaganda and ammunition to blame Israel for the problems that the US is going through. We'll see how this happens. But at least for the Iranian context, my hope is that the pressure on Iran continues, that the true reality that they're doing whatever they can to conceal. Their true economic situation is really bad.
Yep.
Their social situation is really bad. The support of in the regime is going down. Summer is coming.
Right.
There is not enough water to provide for the population. The people are really suffering. I have a lot of support and compassion for what they endured in January. They went to protest on the streets, literally risking their lives. Dozens of thousands of them have been massacred in the streets. They didn't do it because we asked them or the Americans asked them. They did it because they're fed up with this and they deserve a different life. And I think that it's important to support the Iranian people and to give them the means and the assistance that they need so that they can succeed in this. And this could turn to the better, and I hope it does. And in any case, Israel will need to keep a very close, sharp, open eye on what they're doing on the nuclear front to make sure that regardless of everything else, we can detect what they're doing and have the proper response so that they never have weapons of mass destruction.
Let's talk about regime change. The Mossad last year around Rising Lion and Midnight Hammer, I think very interestingly, launched its Twitter account in Farsi. We've seen it being very active in this war, saying, for example, things like, we are marching with you in the streets.
Right.
We've seen videos. We've seen how the Mossad is operating there. Prime Minister Netanyahu has long said that he is hopeful that these operations create the conditions for regime change. The president even at some point said we need new management. How close are we to regime change, and what does regime change even look like?
Right.
And by the way, I asked that as well because more recently we saw, even in the administration, this kind of turn of phrase of they haven't achieved regime change, but they changed the regime.
Yeah.
That was something Secretary Bessent said. But yeah, what does regime change look like?
So I will echo that because I actually agree with this statement. But
okay.
let's start with the beginning. First, Israel for years, not to say decades, has refrained from making regime change in other countries an objective, an operational objective. The only time where we engaged in this in a more active way was in the 80s in Lebanon. That didn't play out so well.
Right.
And I think that the lesson was we need to be humble with our aspirations. Israel has never taken out a leader of another country, ever. We took out heads of terror organizations many times. But taking out Supreme Leader Khamenei was the first time that Israel decapitated a leader of another country. And as I said before, the only reason this was done is because this was planned and executed in conjunction with the United States of America. And by that, of course, there is a chain of events that is taking place in Iran. Iran, in many respects, is turning from a theocracy to a military dictatorship. The people who are calling the shots in Iran at the moment are General al-Wahidi and Abdullahi that are leading the IRGC and what they call self-sufficient jihad. Maybe Mujtaba, whatever his condition is, will grow stronger over time and be able to take back some of the authorities that the military has taken. Maybe they'll agree, maybe they won't agree. We'll need to wait and see. But at the moment, in practical terms, Iran is run more as a military dictatorship than a revolutionary theocracy. Now, this is change.
Yeah.
This is not perhaps the change we wanted and envisioned.
Yeah.
But to be completely honest, in our tabletop simulations, it was quite obvious that unless something unexpected happens, the strongest force in Iran, meaning IRGC, will take over Iran. And the chances that the people who have no leader, no strong leader, even though there are, 80% of the people in Iran do not support the regime and do not support IRGC, do not support the revolution, and would be very happy to have a more open democracy, even though Iran never had a real open democracy. This is not a culture of democratic values or governance, but still they wanted their rights. But the fact that 80% of the people want their rights doesn't mean that they will get it if they don't hold the weapon to take it by force, especially when the RGC is so viciously willing to kill them on the streets as they demonstrated in January to retain authority. Countries can fall. Egypt fell in Mubarak. Syria fell. None of these are good examples, and none of them resemble the situation in Iran. So this was the expected outcome.
Yeah.
So when Bennett says there is change in the regime or something along these lines, I think he's actually right.
Okay.
It just doesn't mean that we're in the condition we wanted to be in. Is it better than what we had before? I think so. I'm not sure, but I think so. I think that they're more constrained than they were before. I think that the pressure can take its toll. I think Iran is very averse of going back into fighting, even though the rhetoric is very strong and they're hitting the drums very sound a lot of noise while they're doing this.
Targeting regional states.
If Iran wanted to go back into war, all they needed to do is fire one projectile at Israel, and the war will resume. And they haven't done so, and they know why. So they will attack the Kuwaitis, and they will scratch the Emiratis, and they will fire at American ships because they know that President Trump doesn't want to go back to conflict. And they know that they can get away with it and look brave, but get away with it. If Iran really wanted to go back into conflict, there is a very simple way to do this, and they're very, I think, averse of doing that. That does not put us in a good situation just yet. What it means, though, is that we have conditions of pressure on Iran, and we can use this to our advantage. And again, as I said before, I just hope that the American establishment and administration will have the strategic patience to follow this through.
Let's turn to Lebanon. This weekend, the Israeli government announced that it had captured a pretty mythical almost place in Lebanon. The Beaufort Castle plays a big role in lore about the first war of Lebanon, and the Israeli military has advanced some of the deepest territory into Lebanon in some decades. What do the government and military hope to achieve, and can those objectives be reconciled with what the president has indicated are his efforts to get some kind of deal with Lebanon and also a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah that he hopes will last in eternity?
So, first, I have to say that unlike the Iranian case, where there are, I think, fundamentally little differences between the different viewpoints in Israel's national security establishment and political positions, when it comes to the situation in Lebanon, in Gaza, in the West Bank, it's more difficult to say that. And, I'm not a political figure, but I'm not shy of putting criticism when due. To be honest, I don't know what is the plan of the current Israeli government as it comes to Lebanon. It's very hard for me to really understand what the purpose is. The purpose was to degrade Hezbollah to a point where there are enough pressure and capabilities by the Lebanese government, with the support of the American administration, and engagement in negotiations that the government not only approved but really pushed. Remember, Netanyahu came to the public and said, we have an opportunity for an historic agreement with Lebanon that would decrease Hezbollah's presence in Lebanon for decades to come and change the Middle East. I don't know what his thinking is on it, but I think that there were conditions that would allow us to get close to this. I'm not a dreamer. I do not think that the Lebanese government has the capability to disarm Hezbollah by themselves. I'm not pushing for a normalization agreement with Lebanon or a peace agreement. We cannot have any normalization or peace with a country like Lebanon as long as Hezbollah is holding arms and can start a conflict with Israel. What we do need is a concerted effort to push Hezbollah back and back and back, and to cut them off their resources, their sources of funding, their sources of support, to increase the resentment of the Lebanese public with Hezbollah, because it was very high a couple of months ago, and now it's eroding. And it's eroding because I think our strategy is not coherent. We're now in a position where we are very deep into Lebanon, but we don't have the capability or the approval to run the policy that is needed to protect our forces in Lebanon. Because, and again, as I said before, to be expected, if President Trump is engaging in negotiations with Iran, Lebanon is the sideshow. And no one should be surprised that this will come with the restrictions on Israel's ability to use force, which in my mind was supposed to lead us to a force posture that allows us to protect our interests even when our hands are tied behind our back. And definitely not come to a point where it's obvious to everyone, including our enemies, that it's the Americans who are tying our hands behind our back. This is not good for our reputation. This is not good for our deterrence. This is not good for the positioning around us. And unfortunately, the toll is very high. Israel has lost 13 soldiers since the ceasefire. This is not a ceasefire. So one way or another, either we break it and engage in war, but this is not possible because of the president's priorities, or we act differently because we're supposed to be smart. And unfortunately, this is not the case. Unfortunately, I'm trying not to make this into a political conversation, but I think it's important
make yourself
to understand. I'm sorry?
Put some politics into it. I said you can put some politics.
I mean, I try to put policy into it. Unfortunately, everything today is politicized. But we shouldn't be in a position where we deploy our forces because they serve a political need or concern. We should be deploying our forces as it serves Israel's security and national security. So I'm a bit worried about how this goes. Now that we're there and conquered the before, and the soldiers are really excited about this, to go back to the before. We cannot defend our soldiers there without freedom of action in Lebanon.
Yeah.
And when Hezbollah starts sending those drones on the before, we might start losing soldiers in the Buford. And this is not going to be very, very good. So I hope that we're not getting into a quagmire, right? Is that the word?
Quagmire.
Quagmire.
Yeah.
And that we don't find ourselves 15 years ahead asking ourselves, why are we again in a security zone in Lebanon like we asked in 2000 to decisions made in the 80s.
Yeah.
I hope that the engagement with the Lebanese government will deliver some fruits, that Israel can stay in Lebanon, definitely. I'm not suggesting that we leave all of the strongholds that we had, but being on the before does not add to security of our northern communities.
For sure. No, and I asked because of, the fanfare and the symbolism around that site.
Yeah.
You bring up the casualties, especially related to drones. So wanted to ask you as well now on tech. We've seen pretty interesting developments, the rise of drones, not just in the region, but globally, especially in the Russia-Ukraine war,
Right.
especially fiber optic drones. I believe the Prime Minister Netanyahu called this an epidemic. What are Israel's advantages and challenges in facing these developments, along with the rise of LLMs and AI in warfare?
So first, we have pretty good technology and pretty good defense tech. I think we're in many ways leading on the front of what's possible to be done with tech all across. But we also fail from time to time to respond to things in time.
Mm-hmm.
And this fiber optic control drones were introduced in the Ukraine-Russia war almost 3 years ago. I'm self-critical on us as professionals. We don't need to wait until it hits us in the forehead to start taking things seriously.
Yeah.
This is the kind of failure that led us to undermine our enemies in other scenes, like in Gaza before October 7th. We should never think lightly of our enemies. We need to assume that they will learn. And if they understand that there is something that works and penetrates our defenses and gives them an asymmetric advantage, then they will pursue it, and fast. And then they'll double down and triple down and 10x, because they know that we have a vulnerability and they can use it against us. And this is what we're seeing at the moment. Now, we're losing soldiers over this, so this is very painful. But from an operational standpoint, this is tactical, because we'll solve this problem. It's not impossible to solve this problem. I just wish we did it before we have casualties. But once we do that, they'll find something else. And
Right.
The next thing I'm worried about is that at the moment they fire single drones with fiber optics because we're not able to detect them in time and shoot them down. We will. But we know what's coming, right? The next will be swarms.
Yep.
And when it swarms and they communicate between themselves, and AI is governing this, and again, it can be very simple AI. They don't need to be really sophisticated and to do all these, what the Chinese do in the air, right? And they do all these air shows, and it looks like they're running movies in the sky. Hezbollah doesn't need to do this. All they need to do is make sure that they fly in the speed that they do not hit each other, know where the town that they need to crash in, and then come as rain and a barrage on our communities. Hezbollah can do that. They haven't operationalized this yet, I think because they understand that they need to keep it for the next war. But we should assume they already know how to do this. Why? Because this has been done elsewhere and it's not hard. Unfortunately, it's not hard.
Yeah.
Defending against that is hard. And we need to get to it. And not wait until the next war comes and then be surprised with something that there is no reason for us to be surprised of. This is the kind of challenge that our tech sector and intelligence and IDF and Air Force need to do, because we know it's coming. And by the way, there are other things that might be coming. But this is kind of the most immediate thing that we all know, because this is not something we need to envision or invent.
Yeah.
It's already there, almost on the shelf.
Let's turn to U.S.-Israel relations. There have been a lot of changes on Israel's status as a ally or partner from all sides of the political spectrum. I want to first read to you an excerpt from a podcast episode recently with Aaron McLean and Jake Sullivan, who you worked with closely. Mr. Sullivan says, talking about the position of Israel in the Democratic Party, quote, "I don't want to suggest for a minute that the movement in the Democratic Party is because of Netanyahu. There are larger policy issues related to Gaza and Iran and other issues within Israel. One element that is important is the nature of Israeli democracy." He also goes on to say that there will be a debate on Israel's role in U.S. policy towards the Middle East. And it's interesting also because today the Prime Minister had an interview with Sarah Eisen on CNBC. He talked about wanting to end aid to Israel, see the U.S.-Israel relationship as more of a partnership with joint kind of returns. Wondering, what is your reaction to this? What do you see as the future of the U.S.-Israel relationship, for better, for worse, pros and cons of those trends that we're seeing?
Yeah. So, first, I have to say I'm worried. I'm worried because, unfortunately, it is becoming more and more clear that there are significant differences in viewpoints as to policy, not just politics, between the U.S. and Israel. And it's not just on the Democratic Party; it's also on the Republican Party. Unfortunately, Jake is right in the sense that when and it's in a point in time it will happen, Netanyahu leaves the scene, and new government will come. This will not fix everything by a snap of fingers, because even if a lot of the critic on Israel is personal, on Netanyahu, on Smotrich, on Ben Gvir, on various specific things, this didn't start in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
It has gone dramatically more painful in the last 3 years. But this is not a new phenomenon, and we're going to need to deal with this. And again, I cannot come here and say that I know how to solve this and everything is going to be okay, because a lot of people are going to need to work very, very hard to change this trajectory. It has to start with an understanding that this is a problem we need to deal with. And I say this because, unfortunately, and this does have, unfortunately, political elements. There are people in the Israeli political setting, especially in Netanyahu circles, that have given up on the Democratic Party. And when prominent politicians say that they had rather work with the evangelicals because they support Israel, while
You're talking about Ron Dermer?
you know, you said the names. It's not just him, and I don't want to make it about him personally, because it's wider than that.
Okay.
That the left wing in the United States do not support Israel, but the evangelicals will. Especially in this setting, I have evangelical friends, and they are very supportive of Israel. I'm not stupid, right? There is ideology there. It's in the text. And even though it's a partnership that I value, we cannot give up on the support of not just political factions in the U.S. I'm talking about political Jewry, because most of the American Jewry happens to be left of center in the United States. So what does that mean when Israel says that we don't believe that there is future with the Democratic Party? It means that we don't believe in the political viability of the majority of the Jewry in the United States. This is inconceivable in my mind. And this has nothing to do with the fact that the right of center Jewry in the United States is not only supportive of Israel, but very active politically and doing great things for us. It doesn't matter. I want this and that. We cannot give in. We cannot lose this support. Especially I'm saying this because when I look at the data and look at younger generations also in the evangelical group in the United States, and I've seen the data on it, the younger generations They do not buy the narrative just because their parents did. They have questions. They also get their news from this. They also get feeds from TikTok and other things. They also see things that they cannot explain in their echo chamber that they are in. And you know the numbers if you watch the polls. The support in Israel and Gen Z across political spectrum, across Christian and Jewish denominations, is on the decline.
Yeah.
This is bad. I'm very worried. Now, what I'm saying is, I think first we have to recognize that this is a problem. We have to understand that even though we have the ultimate necessary obligation to defend ourselves by ourselves at all costs, and I said this before, we will prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, even if the American administration thinks that this is a bad idea. But we need to limit those places where we do things just because we know we're right. Not everything can be in that category. We cannot always do just what we want and rub it in the face of an American president, even if it's Donald J. Trump, that is indeed maybe the most supportive president we ever had in Israel. We can't do that. And we'll definitely won't be able to do that when he's replaced. I don't know who will replace him. But I know for sure that he or she will not be as supportive of Israel as he is, regardless if they come from the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. We will need to be more cognizant of this, and we will need to tune our engagement with the administration to start decreasing those gaps. Because otherwise, and I am worried, we can lose the support. And if Israel loses the support, this is not just about the aid. This is not about the $3.8 billion a year that we're getting from foreign military FMF. What is that last F? Foreign military funding? Oh, whatever.
Okay.
This is the diplomatic support.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the United States of America, almost every day of the week, needs to use its veto authority on the UN Security Council, because otherwise there will be sanctions imposed on Israel, because everyone else do not think that we have the right to do things that we think that we have the right to do.
Right.
And the United States of America defends Israel on the diplomatic front every day of the week.
Yep.
This is way more important to Israel's future and economy and society and prosperity than the $3.8 billion that we get in aid. It's a more holistic thing. So, long answer to a short question, but we'll need to be better at that.
I try to make like as much time for you to speak, so that's why I try to keep the questions
No, but
short.
if you want to have questions from the crowd, then let's get to it, because
Well,
it's 8 p.m.
Okay. I think that was a great seg. Before we open up for Q&A, I wanted to just do a quick lightning round, if it's all right. And then I think we'll open it up. You're a trumpet player. Who's your favorite jazz artist?
Wynton Marsalis.
Okay. You're a physicist. Who's one of your favorite physicists or scientists?
Nikola Tesla.
Okay, interesting. What's a book that you recommend to people that maybe has changed your worldview or has left an impact on you?
Think Slow, Think Fast by Kahneman.
Okay. Who is a leader you look up to who others should study?
I don't know.
You can come back.
Next question.
If I name some leaders, can you give me a one-word reaction? President Trump.
Eccentric.
Recep Erdogan in Turkey.
A lunatic.
President Biden.
Underevaluated.
Vladimir Putin.
A tyrant.
Mojtaba Khomeini.
Half dead.
I want you to fill in the blank. The future of the state of Israel is?
Promising.
I was going to ask if you're optimistic about the future, and I think you laid out, by the way, earlier some actions that can be done jointly between the U.S. and Israel. Why don't we open up to questions, please? Jamie.
Yeah. So thanks for being here. Jamie Metzel. I served on the U.S. National Security Council with President Clinton. No, it's okay.
The good days.
Yeah. And I worked in the Senate with Joe Biden and Tony Blinken, and I'm a just seems to me that the reason Israel, I'm a strong supporter of Israel, of course, and the reason Israel is there is because of the courage of the Israeli people. But without the support of the United States, starting in the 40s until now, Israel simply cannot exist for the long term.
Right.
And it seems to me, I mean, I agree with everything that you've said, that it's almost suicidal from the perspective of the Israeli government to pin the entire future of Israel. I mean, when Netanyahu came here and met with Congress above the head of Joe Biden and started just betting all of Israel.
That was Obama, not Biden.
Oh, I'm sorry, Obama, you're right. Betting all of Israel in the Republican Party to so many different things to after October 7th, not making the case for Israel here. Like there was almost a choice of being a Middle Eastern strongman or making the case here and going with a Middle Eastern strongman, or even somebody in the Israeli consulate knew that Smotrich was going to try to sneak his way into our parade. Whoever that person is, in my view, should be fired. But all of this seems suicidal from Israel. It's like Israel is betting its entire future, not just on the Republican Party, but a little sliver of the Republican Party. And then for all of the strength of the Jewish community here, and I'm originally from Kansas City, so it was the Kansas City Jewish community were the guys who weighed in on Harry Truman to do Eddie Jacobson, to do the original support for Israeli state. It almost feels like the state of Israel is whatever cliche you want to use, leaving the American Jews out to dry. And so we're like dangling here, and Smotrich is coming to the parade, justifying a terrible decision by the mayor not to come. Netanyahu didn't say after October 7th very publicly, we've had 5 peace offerings, and maybe we'll have a 6th someday where we go after the stairs. So the Jewish community is really under threat. The Israeli government is betting everything on a tiny sliver of the Republican Party, which is by definition may not last forever. What, philosophically, it makes so little sense. What do you think is that?
So, a few comments. First, I think I laid out what I think about this. I think that it's very dangerous for Israel to rely on only a part of the political American system. The United States is the only strategic ally Israel has or will ever have, and we cannot roll the dice every election and bet only on 50% of the time. So that's point number one. And I think we need to work differently. I did say that President Biden is undervaluated, and I'm talking from an Israeli perspective. I'm not an American. I didn't vote here. I don't get to choose who's the American leader. That's for you to decide. But President Biden, definitely in the time that we've worked with him, but also to come to Israel the next day after this tragic war started, I'm not sure that President Trump would have done that. And I think the president, in this regard, he deserves more. He made many mistakes. I think his team was underperformed. I think his Iran policy was crap. And I think that they've lost their way in their own domestic politics in the Democratic Party that led to some decisions that I think they should regret.
Mm-hmm.
I have some questions in common to things that Jake Sullivan have said throughout recent months, even though I worked with him very well. But still, I think that we need to be thankful and grateful for things that any American president does, and that includes President Biden. Now, having said all of that, I have to tell you that I find it very bizarre that a minister in Israel, even if his name is Bezalel Smotrich, cannot attend a parade in New York. Mm-hmm. I think this is an overreaction. I think this has nothing to do with Mandani not coming to the parade. Mandani first decided not to come to the parade. I think Mandani needed to come to the parade. I think it's a disgrace that the mayor of New York thinks that he does not come to a parade that supports Israel. Now, I do not like Bezalel Smotrich's policies on many things, but what's the problem with an Israeli minister coming to an Israel parade?
Yep.
I wanted the Prime Minister of Israel to be in the Israel parade. If it was up to me, the entire government of Israel will have their government session in New York, in a town hall, maybe in Chabad, in this place, because it's Israel Day in New York.
Please God.
No, seriously. I mean, this is...
Put out a lot of tefillin if they do.
Some of them will. No, seriously.
All of them.
Now, again, I understand the emotions that this brings. I understand. But I think we need to call spade a spade and heart a heart, and to be even ourselves more careful with this. I can hold those two positions at the same time. I don't feel that I'm contradicting myself. This is what I think means to have bipartisan support in Israel for the United States, and also bipartisan support in the United States in Israel. Israel is a democracy. I may not like this government, but this is an elected government. And this is the ministers that we have. So I hope I given a broad enough answer.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Yeah. No, sorry, in front. Yeah.
What you said the U.S. is the only thing holding the UN back from sanctions. What do you think the root cause of the culture of everyone else on the UN Council is causing that values misalignment that
Yeah.
wants them to sanction?
Well, so of course there are many things to be said about this. But the first fact is that I think very shortly after 29th of November 1947, there was no more majority in support of Israel. Now, for a host of reasons. The undecided bloc, affected by the Arab motion, the Soviet bloc back in the 50s, the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. Now it's different. And now, I think that it has become too easy for too many countries, because right? Of course there will be those who will not support us because they have ideological reasons that they think are justified. Either our enemies or adversaries of the United States. I don't expect the Chinese and Russia to support Israel because they are at odds with the US. My frustration is with the Europeans.
You're not alone.
Yeah. Now, I engage with them. Same answer I gave to why we should engage in all political spectrum of the United States. I went to Brussels. I meet their ambassadors to Israel. I go to visit their capitals. Because I think that it's important not only to understand what's troubling them, but to make sure they understand that we're watching while they are playing politics on our expense. And that's a big problem. Now, Europe is going through a phase. I don't know if they will get out of that phase and in what way. But at the moment, supporting Israel is not a good political choice in the entire liberal world. And this is pervasive also in the US. So, some of it are things that Israel can do something about it. We can definitely work better on our reputation. I think Israel has completely missed the battle on the reputation security. We have a very good military. We're good in the physical security. We did not even show up to the game of reputation security. It's a disgrace. And we have to be better. But I'm not fooling myself. It's not that we will tell our story better and expose the good things that we're doing, and now everyone will cuddle with us because it's nice to do this with us. But again, we're going to need to be resilient and smart.
Let's take the...
We are going to need to finish soon.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'll miss my flight and I can stay for Shabbat.
Hi, thanks for coming. I'm curious if you think a traditional Western style of diplomacy is an effective way to negotiate with Iran?
Well, data shows that it isn't. When the Obama team engaged with the Iranians, it became very clear very soon after this started, that the Iranians' ability to trick them and deceive them was way beyond what they imagined. I won't put names on the table, but Secretary of State that sealed that deal is very tall and handsome, perhaps, but he doesn't know his ass from his elbow. And he did damage also in other places in the world, not just with us.
Some would say he was messianic at the time.
I don't know. And the president wasn't any better either. It did not justify for the Prime Minister of Israel to come and speak above his head to two houses of Congress when the deal is already signed. Clearly nothing will change and degrade Israel's image. That's apart for that story. But they negotiated very badly. Now, I think what's happening now with President Trump, and I said eccentric and I meant it, but not necessarily in a negative way, because his ability to keep everyone guessing and completely unable to anticipate what he will do next, even though at the end he's is predictably unpredictable. At the end, we know what he will do. But all the time until that time, we have no idea. And it works. Now, he's rewriting the books of diplomacy. Not everyone likes it. But at least from an Israeli perspective, we got all the hostages back. I didn't think we'll get all the hostages back. The Biden team did a lousy job in it. But he didn't. He was able to press the Qataris and the Turks and the Egyptians in ways that eventually got us back all of the hostages. It's remarkable. And I say if he was able to do this, he can do other things, given the right conditions and support. So, is this Western negotiations? Yes, because he wrote The Art of the Deal, right? This is, I don't know, East Side, West Side negotiations of real estate. I don't know exactly what he does there, but we definitely don't need the traditional conservative way of negotiating, because it doesn't work. I don't think it works not just in the Middle East. I think it doesn't work with the Chinese. I think it doesn't work with the Russians. I think it doesn't work with the Europeans. I think the United States can use more resolve and resources, and in least some of those cases, he's happened to do it very effectively, and I hope it continues that way.
I want to say the last time that we met, I remember I asked you if you would ever maybe write a book about what you'd done. You'd said no, but you maybe hinted at it. I really hope that one day you will. It's a real pleasure every time I get to see from you, learn from you a lot, and we're really thankful and really appreciative of your generous time with us tonight. Please give a warm round of applause for and we'd just like to present you with something. Rabbi, maybe you want to share?
We have a little small token of appreciation of a book that just came out this week that I think we've been talking about defense and some of the maybe grim outlook as to what's going on these days. So maybe I want to talk about taking it on the offense, but maybe with a bit of a paradigm shift. There's a book that came out this week. I think it's very poorly titled, called Conversations with My Rabbi. But really, it is actually, I think it relates a lot to a lot of your work, because it was actually written posthumously to some degree by one of the rabbis who was killed on Bondi Beach. He was in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of writing a book with this newscaster in Australia about Jewish ethics for the world. Not for Jews, but for the world. And if we have the ability to spread Jewish ethics and values in obviously in a subtle, a beautiful way, I think obviously we're going to live in a much, much better world together. And I think it's also your message tonight of Jewish unity, I think, is, of course, the most important thing we have. So we want to give you this book, first of all. Hopefully maybe you can read some of it on your flight.
I will.
Yeah. And thank you so much for coming and joining us and being here. You were incredible.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming. Thanks.